All right, everybody. We are live.
It's 7:04. We have a quorum. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a public forum. It's a special meeting of the Westland Board of Education. We're at that point in the budget process where we're inviting the public to actually participate, make comments on the budget, ask questions of the administration and the board, and hopefully the public, through their participation, get a better understanding of the budget or clarification of things that they don't quite understand, or simply comment about the budget that has been proposed by the superintendent and the administration. Just to let people know, where we are in the budget process. We had a formal presentation of the proposed budget on the 6th of January. We've had two workshops, a workshop on the 7th, a 4-hour workshop on the 7th, a 3-hour workshop on the 13th to deliberate on the proposed budget. Tonight we have a public forum. We have a 2-hour workshop scheduled for Monday morning. And on Tuesday evening, we're scheduled to vote on and approve the budget and pass it on to the Board of Selectmen for further deliberation. So Dan, maybe I can hand it over to you to kind of go over the ground rules for this evening.
Sure. All right. Let me let everybody in. Just waiting 1 second to make sure everybody is connected to audio so they can hear. Okay, everybody, good evening. I just wanted to go over some the way the procedure will work for the public comment. What we will be doing is please keep yourself muted. And when we call on you, please unmute yourself and go ahead and make your comment. There is a 5-minute limit on the comments. When you're done, please continue. Please go back to muting yourself and we will call on the next person. If there is time for follow-up questions, we will allow that at the end of the round with everybody who has joined the meeting for public comment.
Just one thing I didn't mention, we're scheduled to go for an hour, but we will, if there's a long list of people, we will make sure we'll go as long as everyone at least gets to have one round of comments and questions.
Are we ready?
Sure.
Okay. The first participant is Christina Eslinger. Please unmute yourself and state your address.
Hi, everybody. Christina Eslinger, Ledgewood Drive East. What I would like to do tonight is read a letter that I sent last week. This letter was to Superintendent Wallach and the members of the Board of Ed. The kids are not all right. I listened intently during the recent Board of Ed budget workshop when Bernie listed as one of her big driver issues the additional proposed district psychologist and asked whether the district needs more capacity in this regard. We need more. It is common knowledge that we are dealing with a mental health crisis, in this country, and kids have been hit especially hard. As Tracy Edwards said during the BOE workshop, they have seen a significant increase in the needs of students, with social emotional needs higher in the upper schools. Students are coping with their issues in different ways, and some students may not even consciously realize they are struggling. Professionals and parents are seeing increased anxiety and depression, behavior changes, drug and alcohol use, and in some more serious cases, self-harm. Weston is not in a bubble in this regard. I am sharing 2 of many articles published on this subject that you may have seen. One passage and the quotes and examples that followed really struck out at me. Quote, while headlines bemoan learning loss, some psychologists and administrators are more worried about the emotional effects the pandemic has left behind, end quote. Weston High School has one social worker and one psychologist. There is a second social worker dedicated to alternative pathways, but that program does not impact the majority of students and is not focused on mental health. These two professionals already have more than full plates, and that is considering the majority of high school students are not even aware of these resources. Excuse me. They would not think to go to their guidance counselors, as theirs is a different role for students. The Weston High School PTO board has been talking about the mental wellness of our students since the start of the school year. We talk about it at every executive board meeting as the year has progressed. What are we experiencing in our homes? What are we hearing? What are we seeing? What can we do to help our students? We have had good dialogues with Principal Gavoni and shared direct feedback from students and their parents. The PTO has already done things within our scope to help fund floats during the homecoming, hosted a casual event for sophomores before the fall company production, and will be hosting Good Luck on Midterms, hopefully tomorrow, treats before the school day for midterms. When it is safe to do so, we will be hosting a viewing and discussion of Screenager's next chapter, Uncovering Skills for Stress Resilience. I also began a discussion with Julie about the concept of a wellness center to complement the College and Career Counseling Center, which some schools across the country are implementing. The Weston High School PTO is willing to help in other ways, such as supporting programming and other ideas you may have. Adding one district psychologist next year is, of course, very helpful, but will not address the needs at the high school. We need additional dedicated social worker support at the high school. And it should be noted, this is not a one-year need, but a multi-year need, as it will take years to deal with the impacts of the pandemic on our children. While we know what we are suggesting is a big ticket item to add to the budget, we believe the health and safety of our students is of utmost importance. One might argue more important than academics and test scores. I find it hard to believe that any taxpayer would not be supportive of helping our children through this most unprecedented time and the impacts they are facing to their mental health. Best, Christina Eslinger, Weston High School PTO President. I thank you, and I share this as we need to normalize these mental wellness issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Before I hand it over to Lisa and the administration, that's one of the, in one of the workshops, I think the board asked the question, understanding the mental health issues that we're facing in all of our schools, and including the high school. We asked the question, do we have enough resources in the budget to be able to cope with that? And so I think the board is supportive. We asked the questions. We will continue to ask the question to make sure that we have the resources in place to deal with the mental health issues that we're seeing in all of our schools. But Lisa, maybe hand it to you and others to elaborate a little bit more.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Pesco. And I will start, and then Ms. Edwards and Ms. Gavoni, please feel free to speak as well. Thank you, Christina, for bringing that up. And you and I have talked about this also. And I appreciate your email and the fact that you raised this serious issue that is, yes, at the secondary level, but also at district wide. We worry a great deal about the social, emotional state of our kids, because quite frankly, as you said, if our kids do not feel comfortable, if they do not feel supported, if they feel stressed, and there's certainly been a lot of reasons why they feel that way, not just because of the pandemic, then that adversely affects their learning. We are continuously monitoring this situation. I think that the district psychologist that we put in place, the reason we chose the district psychologist was because that person can do the testing. And then it is certainly our hope that the psychologists that are in the building will then be freed up with their time to provide the levels of individual and group counseling support that they have done in the past. The other point I wish to make is that, it has been a challenging year, as everyone knows, because of COVID. And I want to speak specifically to COVID, and not only the students, but the staff. And when, for example, if a staff member in general is absent, whether it be for COVID or tending to a family member that perhaps has COVID, or just general different days, personal days, things like that, that they're off. It is especially difficult when we look at our counseling department, when we look at the psychologists, the counselors, and the social workers, because the bottom line is this: if a child is having an issue in that area and a person is out, there's no substitute. We don't put in a substitute for that person. You know, if someone is out for math, we can provide math work. We can hopefully cover it internally with someone with a math background or one of our wonderful subs. But when a psychologist is out, or a social worker is out, or a counselor for that matter, the level of expertise in that situation is very hard to call in, if you will, a sub. So we're very aware of that. And we are monitoring that very closely. That being said, one thing that I'm so pleased that we have, and Weston has, and there are other Durgate districts and other districts in Connecticut that don't have, is the college and career counselor. So our college and career counselor this year has picked up even more of the college process, meeting with families, meeting with students, and collaborating with counselors, so that we can flex our counselors into more of that counseling role. I think that your point is well taken, that perhaps students are not as aware that they can go to their counselor, that there are a variety of people to support. And, we take responsibility for that and how we can get the word out further. But at this point, we are monitoring the situation very closely. I certainly will take this position that I know is not just said by you, but also other members of the PTO and the families, especially at the high school, into consideration as we move forward. We make decisions based on a budget and a process. And at the same time, that doesn't mean we are locked into something. And one thing I think is so wonderful about the town of Weston is that when we need to perhaps change course, adapt, we might need an appropriation for an extra section, for example, for a classroom. It's not always about the academic piece. So I'm confident that as we move forward in this process and monitoring it very closely, that we will end up in a good place moving into, as you said, not just next year, but the following year. Because as we know, it takes a village to raise these kids, pre-K-12. We're committed. That's why we're doing the change, frankly, at the elementary school by putting in a social worker model next year that will be able to work very directly with families in a different way than the two psychologists that presently is the setup. And so we're going to keep monitoring it and following it closely. And if we need to make an adjustment, we have no problem based on the situation and what our kids need about asking for that. I don't know if Ms. Edwards, you have anything that you'd like to add?
I honestly think that was a very thorough answer to the question. I mean, I think we've talked at length in our meetings about the rationale for the district-wide psychologist and how that provides our staff in the building with greater opportunity to be connecting directly with students, which I think is the heart of what we're trying to accomplish.
Ms. Cavoni, I don't know if there's something you want to particularly add as far as other types of supports and other, if you will, programs that we are providing our students.
I don't have anything. No, Lisa, I think that you covered a lot of information in your response.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to add a little bit of elementary perspective, if that's okay. We're certainly seeing the social emotional needs, as someone mentioned, across the district. And at the elementary level, Mrs. Fauber and I always speak very passionately about class sizes. And certainly the district-wide school psychologist, the social worker model, is very important and critical to the work we're doing. In addition, when we talk about class sizes, a child's first point of contact, particularly at the early elementary level and as they move into the intermediate school, is their classroom teacher. That's their community, that's their person for the day. And their classroom teacher is with them all day. So those students reach out, if they're learning how to manage an emotion, and at the very young ages, they're just, beginning to learn to label their emotions and understand them and how do they manage them. And a lot of that work happens in the classroom. So it's another opportunity. I wanted to make the connection between why maintaining our Board of Ed class size guidelines are so important, because our classroom teachers do it all. They're with the students from the beginning of the day, throughout the day, and to the end of the day. And they're also the first point of contact for the parents. Certainly when the needs go beyond what a classroom teacher can handle, that's those supports in place are absolutely critical. And we do see the need for them and fully support that model across the district. But I also just wanted to point out, why another opportunity of why those class sizes are so important. Because in the moment, those students need that support in the classroom.
I appreciate that, Laura, because oftentimes, we see that at a particular level, we see a great deal of challenge and need. And it's about looking at that particular level or school, and also looking at, and as we plan for the future, the overall program. And I think that some of the things that we're doing at the middle school for next year that the budget supports, and I know Dr. Craw and Mr. Doak have been very involved in that to be able to support those students, because as they continue, it is going to be a multi-year process. And the teaming model and that is also built in. It seems like it's an academic model, but there's also a social emotional piece. Perhaps Mr. Doak, Dr. Craw, you'd like to add to that.
Lisa, if I could just, as Laura was talking, that's exactly what came to mind before you spoke. It's the pure teaming model is all about reinforcing and building that sense of community, the sense of belonging, being well known by a core group, an interdisciplinary group of academic teachers, to be really the first line of support for students, whether it's academic or social emotional.
Just adding to that, Dan, I think the fact that your pure teaming model, your plan for next year, also allows the mental health teams to have that core group of teachers available to them on a daily basis at the same time during their team meeting time. If there are challenges the team is seeing or the counselor, they can intervene quickly and much easier than potentially if you don't have that teaming model in place. So,
we clearly have to look at our overall resources, but I think that the underlying theme here is that yes, the ability for students to access when they are have a certain challenge, social emotional challenges, they're available. But all of these other things, the strength of our district is the personalization. So when you look at, for example, the athletic program, the co-curricular program, all those connections that we pride ourselves with the adults have with the students. I can't tell you when I was principal of the high school, how many times we would hear from perhaps a coach that would share something with the athletic director that then would go to the counselor, like, we're concerned about this child. So it really does take a collective village, and not to keep going on about it, but we do take it very seriously. And thank you. We will consider your recommendation.
Dan, maybe we go on to the next.
My next
Oh,
individual.
Jody, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Okay.
okay. The next individual I was going to call looks like he just dropped off. So I am going to go to Greg Haythorne next. Mr. Haythorne, would you mind unmuting yourself and letting us know your street address?
Sure, thanks, Jody. Appreciate it. Greg Haythorne, 6 Winthrop Hill. Jen and I had planned tonight to bore everyone again by droning on and on about a bunch of facts and figures about the budget and spending, but You know what? We decided not to do that because 2 days ago we sent a communication to Dan DeVito and Principal Wolak, Superintendent Wolak, excuse us, about some suggestions for improvements to some of the links on the town and the district website regarding the budget and these meetings. And we thought instead we'd read one of the 2 responses we received from Dan DeVito over the past 18 hours. Good morning, Jen and Greg. I wanted to follow up, this being for the second time. I spoke to the town and they have fixed the link on their page. The click here for the BOE website link is now fixed and hyperlinks over to the BOE website work properly. Also, the issue with the board book links not being live is resolved. If you look at the page, the links to the upcoming BOE meetings are live. I'll keep an eye on the board book to make sure the links are functioning properly. However, if you do notice the links being dead in the future, before I do, please let me know. Thanks, with an exclamation point, that being about his 3rd exclamation point, Dan. As some of you know, we've had our fair share of communications with the central office and mostly the prior superintendent, as well as BOE leadership. And we're delighted to report that this is about a perfect communication back. It reflects not only Dan's can-do attitude and his orientation to making improvements and getting things done on behalf of the community and behalf of the district. I think it also reflects our experience for the past 5 or 6 years with our kids with former principal and current superintendent Wolak and Jody, who we've had only the best experience with and have high expectations for the type of perspective and attitude that they're going to foster for improvement with the central office team. And we think it probably also is important to note that Dave Felton, new Board of Ed member, is making a real concerted effort to improve Board of Education engagement and outreach with the community, which Dan's great response today reflects. So we just really wanted to instead say a heartfelt thank you to Dan, to the central office team, and let the Board of Ed know we hope that this letter and Dan's work the past couple of days will serve as a role model, an example, as the BOE and central office work with the community to come up with better solutions than we've found in the past for the 3 chronic drivers of spending increase. So again, thank you. There you have it. We avoided the droning on about numbers, and everybody stay safe. Good luck.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Haythorne, for your kind words. They were much appreciated by the board, the administration, and especially Dan. Dan, maybe take this opportunity, right, to, we did, we did switch from one type of website to another. And so people who are having some of that difficulty, maybe, there's a reason for it, right?
There is. So, yeah, I think it was in 2020, the beginning of 2020, the district switched over to a WordPress site, which is a very robust web editing product. However, it is very robust and very complicated. So when prior years, we were using more of a product that was geared specifically towards school districts to make things as simple as possible. However, it had its own issues. So there may be issues on the website that have happened when we ported years of information over from the old final site over to WordPress. So we've been trying to take as much feedback as we've gotten, both from staff, students, from the public, and we've been trying to make the website better. So if there are issues, please reach out to me, and we will continue working on making the website and the communication piece of the website as efficient as possible.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Jody?
Okay, the next individual that I have is Larissa Tedesco. Ms. Tedesco, would you mind unmuting yourself and letting us know your street address, please?
Hello, yes, sorry. I'm on 10 Wilson Road, Weston, Connecticut. I didn't have anything to say. I had tapped the button by accident. I apologize.
That's quite all right.
Okay. Do we have anyone else, Jody?
No, that was it. I think several of the other people who clicked on actually meant to go to live stream instead of the Zoom meeting.
Well, if anyone that is participating through the live stream has a question or a comment, please feel free to join the meeting and participate. Anyone who's still on, if you have a follow-up question or comment, we'll certainly entertain it. Other than that, if the board members at this point have questions or comments, they can go ahead and ask as well. Okay.
Dr. Pesco, perhaps at this time, we're waiting if someone else wants to come on, but
Right.
we could review the future opportunities that people have with regards to, the public meetings regarding the budget and what's up and coming on Monday, for example.
Sure. On Monday, we will have an opportunity. We have a 2-hour meeting. We'll have an opportunity to go through the budget. I think the two items that are really left to discuss in detail are really how the staffing levels look, how they've looked over the last year, how they look this year, how does our grant funding affect our staffing level, and what does it look like as our grant funding rolls off, right? I think that we still need to have a clear, maybe one-pager that everyone really understands, because I think that's up until now. I think that unless you're really steeped in the details of the budget book, we don't really, a lot of people won't understand exactly how we're looking at headcount. So I think there's some work that needs to be done, and I think Phil is doing that work on that. I also think that we need to actually go through the multi-year budget in some detail. I spoke to Phil about that today a little bit, but I think that's one thing we haven't gone through. I do think that there are items in the multi-year budget, like, for example, any risk in terms of funding, headcount that is not going to roll off when funding rolls off. What does that do to our budgets next year and the year after? If we do, what is the impact of a different healthcare ultimately? If we go another route with healthcare, and we're talking about some sort of savings, not that we, obviously there's a whole hell of a lot of work that needs to be done with the unions and so forth, but what potentially are we talking about, and what is the impact on the budget in the out years? So some of the stressing of the multi-year budget, which we haven't done in the past, I'd like to spend some time on Monday to do a little of that, to really understand, what potentially is coming up that are big drivers in the future that can potentially affect the budget one way or another, and maybe getting in front of that in some way. Those are the two issues I think that, amongst other issues, that we probably need to discuss a little bit more on Monday. And then getting the board members' views on the budget. Now that we've done all of this fact finding, we've heard from the community. Tonight we're hearing a bit. We've gotten emails as well. We've all gotten emails on different topics. And to get the board members' view on the overall budget to get ready for a potential vote on Tuesday. Once that's done, we pass it on to the Board of Selectmen. The month of February is the work with the Board of Selectmen. We'll then have a recommendation for the Board of Finance. And then the month of March, we have several meetings with the Board of Finance as they deliberate both the school and the town budget to get ready for our ATBM and referendum in April and beginning of May. So right now we're kind of, I kind of call it towards the tail end of the Board of Education process, but not quite in the middle of the, probably one third of the way through the town process.
And I would encourage anyone that we have tried to get the answers to your questions out in a timely way, because sometimes the answers can generate other questions or need for clarification. So please, if any of the board needs clarification on anything, to kindly email me, and I will make sure that our team works on that. And we will also post additional documents for Wednesday's discussion, because I know previously there had been some requests on Durgay, where the budgets are in the DIRG. And we're working to be very clear about the staffing, because, I know that's a concern, and piecing together, like if which grant goes away, what's left. And, I'm very cognizant of the fact that we have that financial responsibility to the town, that once the COVID funding goes away, we can't absorb additional costs there, or we have to mitigate them as best as we can. So please email me any questions, and I'll make sure that they get to the respective people, and we'll work on getting that out as quickly as possible.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from any of the other board members at this point? No one else is coming on, and no one else is raising their hand. So unless anyone has any additional comments, we'll call it a night and resume on Monday morning.
Thank you.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Thank you for participating, and thank you for members of the public who joined and participated in the meeting. It was really appreciated. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you,
meeting
everyone.
adjourned. Thank you.